Hey there, constant readers. Welcome to the Comedy Tragedy Book Club. I apologize ahead of time for this first book, which we'll get into in a minute. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Sarah.
We're here to suffer. Sarah, why don't you begin with our origin story, since this is your fault?
Okay, so basically, I've been rereading Stephen King. I liked his books a lot when I was a teenager. And since I haven't really read any for 8 years, I just thought it'd be fun to reread them. And as I was rereading them, I thought it'd be more fun to make someone read them with me who had never read them. So I'm an old fan of Stephen King, and I'm trying to find out why I liked his books so much as a teenager. And Nicole is a new fan.
Yeah, that's okay. If we're going to throw around words that are incorrect in their definition. Yeah, Before this first book, I'd only read Carrie, because I was forced to when I was a teenager by Sarah, who has claimed to be my best friend since we were, 17, and clearly she's a liar. So, yeah, okay, the premise is we're going to do this old new thing, and she's going to compare her reading experience of her second plus reading of Stephen King books to my experience of never reading them at all. We're going to see what happens. Today's book is Misery,
Yes.
which was my pick because I've wanted to read this book for a long time. Can't remember why. So we're going to start off with reading the back of the book summary. Sarah?
Paul Sheldon, author of best-selling series of historical romances, wakes up one winter day in a strange place, a secluded farmhouse in Colorado. He wakes up to unspeakable pain, a dislocated pelvis, a crushed knee, 2 shattered legs, and to a bizarre greeting from the woman who has saved his life. I'm your #1 fan. Annie Wilkes is a huge just starting off right there, is a huge ex-nurse, handy with controlled substances and other instruments of abuse, including an axe and a blowtorch. A dangerous psychotic with a romper room sense of good and bad, fair and unfair. Annie Wilkes may be Stephen King's most terrifying creation. It's not fair, for example, that her favorite character in the world, Misery Chastain, has been killed by her creator, as Annie discovers when Paul's latest novel comes out in paperback. And it's not good that her favorite writer has been a don't be and written a different kind of novel, a nasty novel. The novel he has always wanted to write, the only copy of which now lies in Annie's angry hands. Because she wants Paul Sheldon to be a doobie, if you can't see the words, it's not going to make sense.
Can we take a second? This is wildly long.
Yeah, she buys him a typewriter and a ream of paper and tells him to bring Misery back to life. Wheelchair-bound, drug-dependent, locked in his room, Paul doesn't have much of a choice. He's an entertainer, held captive by his audience, a writer in serious trouble. But writers have weapons, too. Continued on back flap.
Oh my god, no.
Misery is a nightmare only Stephen King could have. One only Stephen King could render it in such gruesome detail. Nice of him to share it with us.
Is this before the fandom menace happened? Okay, before we keep going, do you want to do trigger warnings?
Yes.
For anyone? So we're going to do our very best to list all the trigger warnings that we came across in anything we read. Forgive us if we miss anything, because if we're doing Stephen King, there's going to be a lot. So just be prepared.
Yeah. So, fat shaming, suicide, racism, kidnapping, stalking, animal violence, sexual assault, torture, emotional abuse, and mental illness.
Yeah, and I did this when I first started the book. I have a tally of all the rape references and also the slurs used. We obviously won't be saying the slurs, but just for good measure, there was 3 instances, which is less than I thought it would be.
For this book.
I'm not looking forward to when we get to it, because I know that one's going to be bad, and I'm just going to get angry. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, okay. Are we ready to begin the discussion?
Sure.
Should we start with my first bullet point?
Sure.
My first bullet point is, 2 minutes in, and my vibes are not great. Which I heard a little ratty told me you had a similar first thought.
Yeah. So the thing with Stephen King books that you're going to rapidly learn is they either have a very slow, dramatic start, or they start off right away where it's just Stephen King in your face and you hate it.
Are any of them good?
I like The Shining. I reread The Shining earlier this year. I like that.
Do you think I'll like it?
No.
Cool. Do you think any of these books are going to be good? Be careful what you answer, because one of the 3 different kinds of books we'll be doing on this is one that I've picked that Sarah hasn't read. So, yeah, keep that in mind when you're answering this question, friend.
I vaguely remember reading Joyland when it first came out, and I think
I was
that
with you
one's
when you bought that.
I think that one's more lighthearted, so that one might be okay.
Great. I'm so glad we're doing this.
You're lucky I'm not going to make you read the short stories, because if you want a fucking
You
wild
made me read
ride...
the finger one and the tiger one?
I made you read the finger one?
Yes, you did.
For reference, there's a Stephen King short story where there's a finger coming out of the toilet, or out of the sink.
It was a sink.
Yeah, it was a sink,
you
and he's...
fake fan?
The finger... It was 12 years
You're not
old,
a
calm
constant reader.
down. The finger taps the porcelain, and the guy can't pee, and at some point the finger grows, like... a few feet, and he's battling it with a chainsaw, I think, and it's a whole thing.
I've never done cocaine, but I kind of want to after learning.
There's another short story, I can't remember what it's called, but it's in Nightmares and Dreamscapes.
Great.
And it's a long one, and basically the premise is there's this maid, and I really distinctly remember her being a person of color, which makes me think there's probably a lot of slurs in it.
Oh, God.
But, essentially, she has a son that's a really good writer, and one of her friends, she's telling the story to one of her friends about how he became that way, and there was this writer who's staying at the hotel she worked at, and for some reason, one day she was cleaning his room, and there's cum all over his sheets,
Ugh.
and she eats it, and that's why her son is such a good writer.
I don't know if that's exactly how that works. Trigger warning for disgusting stuff, I guess. I don't... Ew. Did you 100% need to tell me that?
For your reaction, yeah.
The listeners can't see my face, only you can.
They can hear your voice cracking in distress.
I am distressed. I've been through a lot. You made me read this 400-hour book.
I read that in my junior year chemistry class, and I can't tell you what it's like sitting in the middle of your chemistry class reading that and just being like, I really hope no one looks over my shoulder
I wish you closed the book and set it aside. You know what I was reading in high school? High school books? I was reading what all the kids were reading. I was reading the Vampire Diaries, and I was reading the Percy Jacksons, and what the hell else did I read in high school?
I don't know.
What do you mean? You were there.
You had Fallen. I remember. That's
Fallen by Lauren Kate.
Yeah, that's the book that recommended you to me.
That's okay. I guess that's how we're gonna phrase that. I thought that my obvious depression recommended me to you.
Yeah, it did. The book helped.
I wish I still had that sweater that you thought was a depression sweater, which it was, but you had no right to say that. What are we doing here today? We're supposed to talk about a book.
Yeah, we're going over our bullet points.
Should we mention, by the way, just in case there's confusion, because I know you're going to probably forget, she's going to call me Cappy. That's also my name. So don't get confused when you hear that. Please don't call me Nicole again. I hate it.
Okay.
Like, for my own well-being, you're already hurting me with this whole project. Don't call me Nicole.
My apologies.
Especially to my face. Do that behind my back like a real friend.
Okay.
Do you want to begin?
Yeah, so you did your first bullet point.
Yeah.
My first bullet point is immediately associating food with Annie. So essentially, whenever Annie is on page, they mention how fat she is.
Mr. King, he doesn't want his constant readers to forget. She's fat and ugly, and that means she's bad. I have a note that says she's ugly, so she's bad, because every time she comes up, she's stupid because she likes romance books, and she's bad because she's fat, I guess. Which, all right, man.
Yeah, she's unattractive. One other thing you'll learn with Stephen King books. Now, I've only read the ones that have come out, reread the ones that have come out in the 70s at this point, and I guess Misery, which came out in the 80s. He has a tendency, at least in his older works, where the second a woman appears on page, he mentions whether or not she's fat or skinny, and whether or not she has a husband.
Great. What, the husband one's weird.
Yeah, I thought, I noticed it a lot in Salem's Lot, that, you'll hear a rant when we get to that book.
No, wait, that's on the list?
Everything's on the list.
What do you mean everything's on the, I don't remember that part of the agreement.
Everything's on the list.
No, we didn't discuss that.
So the other thing with Stephen King's...
Breeze by it.
The other thing with Stephen King's books, the fat shaming is very, very, very common. It was actually better in this book than in other books because he didn't lovingly describe every jiggle of her fat.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Can we pick a different author to do this for? Have you read other... No. Let's do Dean Koontz, because we both would want nightmares.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary.
Those are rough, I know. Is Stephen King better than Dean Koontz?
He's, I wouldn't say better. I'd say he has probably about an equal amount of rape.
Ugh.
But I would say that he's more consistent. Dean Koontz is really, like, you don't know if the book you pick up is going to be the worst one you've ever read or the best one with Dean Koontz.
As, like... So, like, as a Stephen King fan, or, like, former fangirl, because you were a pretty big fan when we met when we were teenagers.
Yeah.
Do you think he deserves, like, the title that the world has given him as this, like, king, if you will, of writing? He's, like, the god of writing, especially horror.
Well, as someone who is or was a fan, I can tell you that a lot of people don't actually like his writing very much.
They just like his stories?
They like his stories, and his stories are, or can be, compelling, depending on which ones you get.
I love the premise of this. That's why I wanted to read it.
Yeah, and, like, I have some notes about the things that I liked about this book.
Oh, God, I didn't do that, because there was almost nothing.
I have some things that I like that I do find compelling writing, and I've seen other people do that's very clearly inspired by Stephen King. And, like, just because I don't like it doesn't mean I don't understand why other people like it.
But I guess it's, like, is it worthy of, like, this godlike status? He's basically, like, when you think of writing, it's like, oh, Stephen King, he's, like, the top. And I think it is because his ideas are so, like, they're good. There's, like, a lot of them that are clever. Like, I like this. I wish there had been more of it in this because of the kind of culture we have now where it's, like, discussing the relationship between fans and an author, and, like, if a creator owes his fans or her fans or their fans anything, or, like, how you should treat fans or how you should treat creators and burnout and all that stuff. I wish something like this had been created more recently because I would like something to address those topics because I think they're interesting.
I think...
Okay, fine.
I think with Stephen King, a big part of his popularity is honestly... In the 70s, he was kind of, like, the shock jock of writing.
Really?
I think so, just because, like, he's... Even stuff he wrote back in the 80s, people are reacting to today, just like, he did that. And, like, obviously I'm talking about the sewer gangbang and It.
Oh, God.
And he's very unapologetic for the stuff he does, so, like, that's why I say shock jock.
It's worse than unapologetic, because I remember when people were asking him, like, why'd you have a bunch of children have sex with each other on page? That was weird. He turned it around. He's like, if you find something wrong with it, there's something wrong with you. And it's just like, no, I think there's something wrong with you, Cocaine Carl.
Yeah, basically what he said was, I find it strange that people are so bothered by that, but not by the clown killing children.
I'm also bothered by the clown killing children, but what's bothering me is that a grown man wrote a detailed sex scene with little children. Were they 12?
11, I think.
Great. That's super.
So yeah, so basically a lot of his issues are also of the time, which I don't think excuses them. I'm still going to talk about them. Mm-hmm. But, you know, keep that in mind, people.
Yeah, what was this? This was the 70s?
No, this was the 80s. I think this was the mid 80s.
It was very established then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so my first handful of notes were like I know basically the kind of stuff I get into with Stephen King, like I know he uses slurs, I know that he has a lot of, like, misogyny in his books, just because, like, of course he does. And it still shocked me that, like, not we listened in audio, 9 minutes in, 3 rape mentions, and I was just like, okay, what am I in for? Because I think the audiobook was 12 hours, and I was not happy. That's, like, a lot of the first notes that I have is just, like, dealing with, wow, he has a lot of this.
Yeah, that's a thing that a lot of, I've noticed, men do. Men who are, you know, as safe as a man can be, is they use rape as an analogy for how violating something is. And the things that are violating, in general, are not as violating as rape.
Yeah, there was a quote from Call Me By Your Name that made me think about that. I will not repeat the quote because I hate it, but I do notice that a lot. It seems like, because some men view themselves kind of, like, as safe from, like, getting raped, they throw it around. They don't have, like, it doesn't have, like, the gravitas it would probably with a woman.
Yeah.
So that it just really it puts me off so much. I just 3 and 9 minutes. Like, come on.
Yeah, they use rape as a synonym for
everything that's violating.
Yeah, for violating, when there are degrees to violation, and rape is the worst one it can be. Hope you guys remember those trigger warnings.
Yeah. We'll have them in the description box.
And essentially, I found it very strange how he was using it, because the book opens up with Annie trying to save Paul's life. and her breath smells bad. So he says she is trying to rape him back to life with her stinky breath, essentially, which is a choice.
Yeah, and like, I don't know how to say this where it's not going to sound jokey, because I'm not joking. But it does also irritate me that, like, so someone's saving his life and the first thing that he thinks is, like, he's disgusted by her.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's part of his personality, though, because, like, for a long time in this book, I was like, is he purposely a terrible person, or is Stephen King not aware of it? I got the impression that he was aware of it, but not, I don't know. Like, it just, he seems so awful.
Most Stephen King characters are, in fact, very bad people.
So, like, as far as characters, where would you put, like, Pennywise, like, on the list of guys that suck? Oh, no, Pennywise is a girl, right?
Yeah.
She's a lady spider.
In the book, she is a female space alien.
Okay. So, like, I would say Paul is worse than Pennywise, because I think Pennywise has, like, a pretty sick aesthetic overall.
Well, I don't think you can compare Paul to Pennywise, because Pennywise is A, not human, and B, the antagonist, whereas Paul is human and the protagonist.
Who should probably have some qualities that make you care about what happened to him, but as I was reading this, I'm just like, I don't care what happens to you, because you're so off-putting, which I guess is just a choice by the author, which, okay, but, like, I have a hard time with books when I don't care about the characters. Like, I feel very disconnected from them if I don't care what happens, and I didn't think a lot of this story was compelling enough to really grab me without that, too. Like, literally 3 hours in, I was like, there's 9 hours left, I can't do this.
Yeah. So, it's... Honestly, I'd say Paul Sheldon's kind of middling for Stephen King characters. There are definitely very, very, very bad ones that are the protagonists, and you're just happy when bad things happen to them.
I look forward to those. That's going to be great.
Yeah. So, my next note is kind of about okay, so a little backstory. If you don't know how Misery came to be, what I've heard is that he wrote a book called Eyes of the Dragon, which was his first foray, I believe, into fantasy, which I read in 8th grade, and I liked.
Okay.
I think I'd hate it now.
I think I'm going to hate a lot of these now.
I also read Misery in 8th grade, and I loved it. I hate it now.
Where were your parents
when
you were reading these, like, come eat books, like peeling baby batter off of comforters? Apparently, like, they were just
they're
cool
just
hanging
with it.
out.
Yeah, they're cool with it.
I didn't know how to read when I was in, what was it, 8th grade?
Yeah.
How old are you in 8th grade? 13?
14.
When you were reading Stephen King, I was studying the Blade, and when I say Blade, I mean just playing, like, the Sonic game and raising my chows. But doing this terrible stuff.
But yeah, so he wrote Eyes of the Dragon. He wrote that for his daughter. There's like a little foreword in it, and it's I thought it was cute in 8th grade. I don't know if I would now, but basically his daughter's just like, I don't want to read all that icky stuff you write. And he's just like, oh, okay. And he wrote Eyes of the Dragon, which was for her. And people hated it so damn much that he wrote Misery.
Is it... Okay, so he did it like, you don't like my art? Fine, I'll give you what you want. Like a pouty boo-hoo thing?
I think it was just a reaction to the hatred, which I guess at that point he hadn't really dealt with. But, like, you know, this kind of thing happens with authors a lot. The most famous example being Sir Arthur Conan Doyle with Sherlock, where it became so popular he couldn't escape it. But what makes me think of is Kim Harrison, who is a urban fantasy author. She wrote the Hollows series. And when the Hollows ended, she changed publishers, changed genres, and changed series, obviously. And those books did so poorly that it almost killed her Kim Harrison name.
Yeah, this various... How many years had she been, like, really established and doing well when
The
she
Hollows
did that?
came out, I believe, in 2006. It was during the Twilight boom.
Oh, okay.
And it ran for, like, till 2014 or 15, I believe. And then she tried to come out with her new series, and it was just, like, 3 years of, like, crap sales. It went from, like, they got her a tour bus for her new series.
Oh.
And it did so poorly that they weren't even sure they were going to put the second one out in paperback.
Oh, they would have done ebook?
They wouldn't put it out at all.
Oh.
And then they put out the second one in paperback, and it did so poorly that they didn't do the third one.
Oh, okay.
And so she had to go back to writing The Hollows to save her career.
I mean...
And I remember there was, like, during this period where she was just trying so hard to get reestablished in what she thought was a secure career, she would post a lot on her blog where it was just very, I don't like to say the word bitter, but it was bitter post, just very unhappy, just like, oh, is this what you want? And putting up excerpts of, like, some bullshit urban fantasy stuff she had written just because she was mad.
It's kind of like, it feels like entitlement. I think there's a lot of entitlement on both sides of the creator and the person consuming the art, which is unfortunate, which is, again, something I kind of wish was, like, more addressed specifically in this book, is, like, who, like, where's the line, I guess.
Yeah, and, I mean, I don't know where I stand on what writers or creators owe their consumer. Mm-hmm. Because if Stephen King wanted to write a book for his daughter, he should have been able to write a book for his daughter. Yeah,
but then there's Paul in the book who has, like, an open hatred for his fans who like misery, and it's like, you can, just the idea of getting mad at people for liking something and not liking something else, that's what I don't like, and that's a little bit, like, that makes me think of the Kim Harrison thing, too, of, like, how entitled are you that you just assume everyone should hop over to your new thing because you feel like you deserve it or you've earned it. It's just like, that's not how it works. Everyone has different taste, and he wrote these romance books in this book, and they got popular, and he's mad that someone who loves romance doesn't want to read, like, his book about a car or whatever. Like, that's how readers there's not a lot of readers that bounce to all the genres and love it all.
I'm not sure I'm not sure how much is entitlement and how much is, like, shaking that secure feeling. Like, you know, I remember the story, I was watching author interview from some, like, Dragon Con or something from years ago. Mm-hmm. And these two authors were talking, and they thought they had done, like, really well on their panel. They thought they were funny. And they get to the signing, like the signing bro, or I don't know what it's called, but the aisle where authors are signing books. And there's this huge line, and they're just like, oh, we're really that funny? Uh-huh. And then they realized that the line was for Kim Harrison. So to feel that secure, to have your book, like, I think it showed up on, like, The Tonight Show a bunch, like, the skeleton was holding it a ton. It showed up multiple times. To go from that to, oh, my Kim Harrison brand might be dead in a year, it's probably quite scary.
I mean, yeah, like, I think it's, I guess for any job nowadays, it's really hard to have any kind of security. Like, we're in the middle of a pandemic where people who've been doing jobs for 30 years lost their job. But, like, when we're not in this situation, too, being a creator is absolutely not secure, because what's popular today is not popular tomorrow. Vampires were really big, and there's still a lot of people who like it, but publishers aren't necessarily looking for vampire books. Agents aren't. Like, that's just, it ebbs and flows. So I think if you want to be secure, you won't, like, Stephen King is secure because he's got a lot of money. He's been doing this since the 70s. So, like, who else is secure? I don't know if there's any author who can, like, write a couple books in a row and have them tank and they still get that sick advance. Like, if Jim Butcher wrote 3 books in a row that didn't pay back his advance, I'm not sure they would keep giving him a decent advance.
I agree, but that would never happen because Jim Butcher writes white nerd power fantasies.
Well, I couldn't think of another man that I was okay naming. Yeah, that sounds terrible. Those aren't on the list, right?
No, I'm not gonna.
Please don't make me.
I'm not gonna make you read Jim Butcher.
No shame if you like Jim Butcher. I just don't.
I thought there was more to that.
No.
Anyway, so the other thing with this book is, like, he is just getting a lot of those negative feelings out and making bank on it, so there's that.
Yeah, get your coin, girl.
But I do find it interesting because at some point in the book he calls Annie a constant reader, which is what Stephen King calls all of his readers.
I hate that.
He opens so many books with "Hello, constant reader," or
that's embarrassing. That being said, I'm gonna come up with a name for our listeners. What's cute, guys? What's cute? Give me ideas that I could take wholesale from you. It'll probably be rat involved.
Probably.
What's a rat thing? Plaguers.
Oh my god.
Black plaguer. What? Like, we got a real mixed brand going on here. Rats and comedy tragedy masks.
That's fine.
But it doesn't really go together.
We made it go together, and that's what's important.
All right, but how am I supposed to come up with like a dope name for our listeners when our themes are like this?
It comes with time. It's fine. It's fine.
All right.
What's your next bullet point?
After I have this man is ungrateful. This is like, I took a lot of petty notes. Like, it keeps getting repeated that she's his number one fan.
Yeah.
And she's only read his books at most like 2 times. And she hasn't even read all of them twice. And like, I'm also a liar. So my favorite books I've only read once or twice, but I'm not going to like kidnap someone and break their legs and tell them I love them when I'm sorry, Patrick Ness, I've only read A Monster Called one time.
I do find it interesting because, like, yeah, she's his number one fan, but she does wait for the paperbacks to come out before buying it. And you said that made sense to you if she's just...
I assumed it was because paperbacks were cheaper, but that is a whole year of waiting. I guess she doesn't have to worry about spoilers or anything, but, like, I guess what's the difference in price of a paperback versus a hardcover in the 80s? Like, was it worth it? Because a paperback versus an adult hardcover is $35 at, like, Barnes & Noble, but an adult paperback is, like, $20 to $25, so, I mean...
It actually depends on the author, because Stephen King books are oftentimes $35. But, like, a Paul Sheldon hardcover would be $27.99, and it wouldn't come out in normal paperback in all likelihood. It would come out in mass market, which would be $9.
Right, so, yeah, I assumed she got paperbacks because they were cheap. And I guess it didn't get mentioned.
Fun fact, in the movie, she had both hardcovers and paperbacks.
That would make more sense, because, like, I'm not to brag, I'm not a consumerist, so I don't have multiple copies of a lot of books, but I actually do. But, like, for something that I'm a huge fan of, I only have, like, a couple copies, except for, like, Carry On. I have the paperback, and I have the hardcovers. Mm-hmm. So, like, I think that would make more sense if she had, like, the hardcover and the paperback.
It would make sense if she had the hardcovers for display and the paperbacks
to read.
Yeah, for reading to death.
Right. But... I don't. That was weird, because like even if she prefers to read paperbacks, if you're the number one fan, you want to read that the day it comes out. You're waiting at the store. You're getting it. You're making that $35 happen, even if you don't have it. You're number one fan. You don't eat for a day. Like that's definitely not healthy. I'm not recommending it. But if I had to choose between a pretty hardcover of a book I've been waiting for my favorite author or eating, I probably would actually skip eating. Honestly.
Yeah, I
have done that.
It's just an interesting juxtaposition of Stephen King's experiences with his readers, but also not understanding how dedicated...
Is he not the number one fan of anything, is the question. What does Stephen King like?
The book he mentions the most, if memory serves, is Lord of the Flies.
Sarah's favorite book, by the way.
I fucking hate it.
Okay, we don't use language on this show.
Oh, sweetie.
We're going to get demonetized from our channel. We can't monetize. Okay, what else do I have? I have a lot of curse words in my notes, actually. Oh, yeah, okay. More about author relationships. He hates Annie and his fans for loving Misery, but not loving his other stuff or wanting it. And he, like, makes them sound stupid. So, like, this man, again, it's probably on purpose that his character's terrible, but, like, so... He writes these books with this kind of attitude of like, oh, it's easy and trash, and these idiots will suck it up and they'll give me money, but they're not buying my real books, my art, and it's just it grinded my gears.
I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I think a lot of that was like misogyny, or toxic masculinity, actually.
Yeah.
Like, he thought he should be better than that, because by the end of the book, which is one of the things I liked, he had started to kind of come around.
He was, like, understanding it, and he had, like, a new appreciation and enthusiasm for it. What I thought was weird that didn't get referenced at all in it, which maybe I'm overthinking it with, like, entitlement too, but, like, even back then, romance books were primarily written by women, so the fact that one of the biggest romance series in this world was written by a guy felt weird.
It sounds like it was written by a guy.
It never got addressed I think that it was strange that a man was doing it, because, like, you look at all those bodice rippers, that's what this is supposed to be, right?
Yeah,
and then, like,
I think so.
It's almost always women. I can't think of any big, like, male names that did a bodice ripper.
Yeah, I can't think of any either, although, I mean...
There must be some.
I'm sure there is. The 80s was 30 years ago. I'm sure there was something.
Wasn't it 50 years ago?
The 80s?
Wait.
No,
40. I'm not good at math.
I don't think either of us are. Technically, I guess
Hold
since
on,
we're in 2021, it was 40 years ago.
Okay. I
But,
believe you.
I still think it's like the early 2010s. It's fine.
Yeah, every day I wake up and think it's 2007.
But it's Misery. The Misery novels are very clearly written by a man who doesn't understand what romance is supposed to be.
They're historical Yeah, and okay, I'll ask you. We have this rule, by the way, that we're not allowed to talk about the book to each other before we do this, so I didn't ask. Okay. In the Misery book, she cheated on her husband, right? To get pregnant?
Yeah.
That would not happen in a romance book.
No.
Like, that's not, like, they're supposed to be so in love. She wouldn't cheat on him and then not tell him.
That
and then
felt like a spiteful thing Paul did to his readers, though. That and killing her at the end. But that's also a thing where, okay, you should have picked anything other than romance if you wanted to do that, because romance is, the appeal of them is that they're guaranteed a happily ever after.
Yeah, so that kind of goes with my thing of, like, does an author owe fans? Because I'll bring up, I'll say Divergent, which, spoilers for the Divergent series, the last book ends with our protagonist dying, and there's a lot of feelings about it, and it's like, does the author owe the readers a happy ending? Or is art more important than a happy ending? Like, Veronica Roth? Is her artistic intent more important than leaving her readers with, like, a happy ending? Because then you go over to the Hunger Games, spoilers for that too, the third book ends with a sort of happy ending. It's kind of bittersweet. I think a lot of people are torn on it, where Katniss is married and she has kids, but she's also sad because, like, she's got this line of, my kids play on the land that, like, a bunch of my friends died on, which is a sad ending too. So, like, with a romance, part of a romance, you're right, is literally you have to have a happy ending. That's part of, like, if you've ever pitched a romance to a publisher, a lot of the time they will specifically say it has to have a happy ending. No death. Like, some of them say no cheating. Like, you have to have a happily ever after. Or, if it's a series, happily for now. So, like, again, I wish they had dived a little more into, do you make a promise to your readers, like 9 books into a romance? Is it cruel to kill the lead in a romance series? Like, I think that
if that was written today,
he'd be done.
It would have been canceled on BookTube. Everyone would have hated it.
I'm gonna say something and try to sound the least sappy as I can, and then be a hypocrite right after. Okay. I think art is very important. If in your soul you believe your character should die at the end, you should do it. But then I saw Rise of Skywalker, and Ben died, and I was mad. So, there's very murky waters here of what I believe, because with, like, a young adult book, I think it's a real risky move to kill a character, and maybe if it's that kind of a book, it's probably okay, but I think for romance, under no circumstances should you kill one of the main characters. Because, like, romance is supposed to be safe, and I think it, to some extent, you owe your readers, because there's, like, this kind of unspoken promise. Like, is City of Angels the movie where at the end, for no reason, like, when the guy becomes human or something, the girl gets hit by a car?
Yeah.
I don't like the sucker punches. Like, I don't like feeling tricked or that someone set me up to be sad. I don't feel like they did that with Hunger Games. I don't feel like it was necessarily like that for Divergent. In Misery specifically, he did it because he hates his readers and he hates the character for being popular. He also called her a slur. Did you? I read it at double speed.
I also read it at double speed. I don't remember, but, like, a lot of it just, like, washes over me at this point.
Paul in the book calls Misery a lot of derogatory names.
Yeah,
he hates her. He hates her for all the money she got him.
He talks about a joke thing he wrote for his friends for one year, where she's just banging a dog all weekend because that's how he feels about her.
I hated that.
It was like, okay.
What friends would think that was funny? If you, like, oh my god, if you approached me with that, I'd be like, I'm going to delete your phone number.
Honestly, if he gave that too, I think any female friend he had, their response would be, oh.
I think that's a red flag. That's you're a not good dude and I need to not talk to you anymore.
They would quietly distance themselves slowly so he wouldn't notice and then get the fuck out.
I have a hard time because, like, how hard do I criticize this character for stuff where I think he was written like that way on purpose, because by the end he did like reflect on it.
Yeah.
It just, I didn't like how, like, you can hate your character, but like the way he hated her, I think was irritating. And then it's also like, all right, so this book series got you your entire name and your fortune and your whole life. And I understand being painted into a corner can probably like really break your heart. I hate to mention J.K. Rowling. I will say ahead of time, dislike her as a person strongly, but I'll use her as an example because she's one of the great examples of, oh, I can't ever do anything but this. Like, how well do her stupid Casual Vacancy books do?
Imagine the last one did really well. People hate reading.
Yeah, but like, when you do something so big and you can't get out, I understand being angry, but calm down.
I do know that her first book, before people realized it was J.K. Rowling, it did pretty bad.
It did, yeah, and that's why she came out with it as J.K. Rowling next time, right? Wasn't it Casual Vacancy?
I thought that was an accident, but maybe. I don't... That was many years ago.
Okay, no, because that must be something different, because she doesn't put J.K. Rowling on those books. She puts...
Robert something Galbraith.
Isn't that name is something bad, right? Like, she named her pen name after, like, a bad dude, right?
I have no idea. I do not keep up with J.K. Rowling, except when Twitter explodes.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, like... And then you brought up Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who killed Sherlock to get away from him. And then after years of his mother bugging him and everyone in the world, he was like, fine, I'll give you what you want. And then, I mean, I get the bitterness. I get being sad. But I don't think it's right to take it out on your fans or think less of them for liking a thing. I don't think you should be, like, groveling at their feet because they love your stuff. But I don't think it's right to hate someone for disliking something you wish they liked more. People just have different tastes.
Yeah.
Definitely don't call him stupid.
It was a lot, and toward like the beginning and middle it was a lot, but then he started writing the Misery novel, and pretty much the second he started writing it, he kind of fell into it.
Right, he said it was easy and like comfortable.
Yeah, and I think it's just I think a lot of it, and I don't know how much this was intentional. A lot of it is just what he thinks he should be working on, because in the novel, in Misery by Stephen King, he has another book called Fast Cars, which I took a note just to mention that Fast Cars is 190,000 words, and like, no, it wouldn't be that long. The publisher would not publish that if his non-Misery books.
First draft,
sweetie.
They'll edit it
down to a reasonable size.
Yeah.
But yeah, as publisher, if his non-Misery books don't do well, would not accept 190,000 K.
Yeah, that's when the book dropped for me, is after they burned it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was, like, interested, because I've been wanting to read this book since we were kids. Like, I was a teenager wanting to read this book, and I haven't. I'm a pretty big reader, and I just haven't gotten around to it. I had copies I could borrow. I have a library card, didn't do it.
It probably didn't help that I was actually a Stephen King fan, and then I started kind of drifting away as I found other things that I liked more. Yeah. Because I started telling you things that happened in Stephen King books that I never liked, and the more I told you, the less interested you became.
Admittedly, for a long time, I read mostly young adult. I've drifted from that heavily since, because I'm now in my late 60s, so I read a lot more different things. But, yeah, this book did not live up to the hype I gave it over the past, I guess, 11 years of wanting to read it. It was one of my
favorites when I was a teenager. Like, when people asked me what my favorite book was for years, I would say Misery.
Really?
Yeah, I loved it a lot, but I don't know why. I can't pinpoint why.
I can't either.
The only thing I remember is from the first time I read it, I remembered a few details, like the rat murder and the when he drank his own pee. And I remember when he drank his own pee, because I just remember thinking, you came to that conclusion awfully fast.
He just saw Waterworld, which came out 10 years after this movie, or this book. It's not a movie. Every time, I think a lot about people drinking pee, and I assume they all got the idea from Waterworld. You've seen that, right?
Yeah, I loved that as a child.
I remember being a little kid watching that and being like, Dad, why didn't he just get water from the ocean and purify that? And he's like, you know what? That's a good question, and I never got an answer. Let's see what my other notes are.
Well, one of mine that I kind of skipped over a little bit is Stephen King's issues with religious people.
You're gonna have to take the helm on this one.
So essentially, Stephen King, I have read at this point 30, 40 of his books.
I'm sorry.
He has a problem with religion, organized religion, which I think is funny because I'm pretty sure his daughter's a reverend. But basically Annie is religious because most of his bad guys are religious. Carrie's mom was religious. There's a lot of religion in the Stand. The Stand's kind of strange because for someone who hates religion so much, he really packed it into the Stand. It's a very common theme, and he always depicts religious people as nutsos. They just go so hard. It's their entire world. It's their entire personality. It's all, this is what God wants. This is what you need to do. And I don't know who hurt him.
Yeah, who hurt you, Steve?
But it's a lot sometimes. I'm not religious, but I have religious family members who are not like that.
Yeah, I also have religious family members who aren't extremists. They are enthusiastic about the Lord. I wouldn't say they are kidnap an author, break his legs enthusiastic.
I will also say it's also mostly women who get to that degree of religious mania. He does this specifically a lot.
Are they unmarried women? With no husbands to distract
sometimes
them?
widows, but yeah, a lot.
Okay.
But, like, they get to a point of religious mania where they just start, like, hurting themselves, like, scraping their skin with their nails and slapping themselves.
Yeah.
And it's only women who do that as far as I've reread. There might be some men, but I can only think of women right now.
I remember that from Carrie.
Yes.
Right.
It happens I think it happens in the Dead Zone, too. John's, whatever you want to call him, his mom is hyper-religious. And I think she did the same thing, but I can't remember. I read that one freshman year of high school.
Great. Look forward to it. Yeah, I obviously don't know a lot about the religious stuff because this is my second Stephen King book and my last. I'll announce right now. I'm finished with Stephen King.
Oh, sweet.
No, don't.
We have a whole podcast. I
don't even know what episode we're doing next, but I already don't look forward to it.
We're not doing a Stephen King one next. We have other stuff.
Oh, please. I'm pessimistic. I like to think of this. This is my mission to find a Stephen King book that I like. And the problem
is... That's my mission, too.
This was the one I thought I was going to really like. Because I thought I was going to really dive into this fandom culture stuff that is going around these days. And it didn't, man. It didn't.
I didn't think you were going to like this one very much. Because one of the few things I remembered from reading it when I was 14 was at the end, during the battle royale at the end between Paul and Annie, he just starts screaming that he's going to rape her.
Yeah,
I knew you weren't gonna like that.
I'm very, I don't know how to say. I was gonna say anti-rape, obviously, but like I will not read books if I know there's rape in it. Like there's been books I've really wanted to read, and I found out there was some kind of sexual assault, and I was just like, nope, won't do it. And I've had like writer friends have to like censor out their own scenes when sending me a chapter to read because I refuse. So I'm not looking forward to a lot of these books because I can't deal with it. I just don't want to. And she at least warned me about that going in. And I'm assuming you'll be able to warn me.
Yeah, I'll probably just read first from now on and tell you when to skip.
Oh yeah, that's probably a good idea because I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to read it. I'm sure you guys don't want to listen about it. So that did bother me. I did the tally. I think there was only 4 instances where he mentioned rape. Not 4 times specifically, but like 4 separate scenes. Okay. And then the slurs for my tally on that one. That one really, like, I absolutely don't think you should put slurs in your books.
Yeah, if there's a person of color in a Stephen King book, he's going to call them a slur.
And then, like, Joe Hill does it too, his son. I was reading Horns, and he threw that in. It's like, man, could you not have figured out a different way to show that she's a racist?
In Dr. Sleep, the last book by Stephen King, I attempted to read. I only got halfway through it because I hated it. It was just like Nosferatu as far as I was concerned, which was a Joe Hill book.
What does that mean?
That's a title. That's a title, yeah. It was like... The plot points to me seemed like very similar.
Did he steal from his boy?
I don't know. But in Dr. Sleep, there is a bad guy character, and he is of Asian descent. And he's called slur word and then his name. I can't remember what his name is.
Great. And when was this book written?
Oh, that one came out
recently enough that you cannot make up an excuse to why this got passed.
Yeah, in the last 10 years. It came out in the last 10 years. But yeah, so that's something that is definitely going to be prevalent. It's, yeah.
The one thing you guys can be sure about is we're never going to say a slur, so that's fine. I do kind of want to... Is it in poor taste to keep track of the rape mentions and the slurs? Because I'm... not like this. I don't think it's funny. I'm curious, genuinely, how often this stuff comes up.
I think it's fine.
Because, like, I was really bothered. Like, I'm just sitting there at 2 o'clock in the morning, minding my own business, reading this book, and then Annie says the N-word.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you didn't need to we already don't like her. Like,
yeah.
You don't need to. We already don't like her. That's not what pushed me over the edge.
We're talking a lot about, like, the way he talks about Annie. And I just want to put here, she is not a good person. I do not...
We don't stan Annie.
No. I just think that there's better ways to explain how she's not a good person than calling her fat and ugly and unlovable.
That being said, the second to last note on my notebook says, am I the only one who ships them? Do you think there's fan fiction of Paul and Annie?
I like that all your notes are sarcastic in my
experience. I know. I didn't like... I took these notes and, like, I meant to do it earnestly, and then I just kind of got frustrated.
And then the Cappy came out.
You know what's great? We were going over, like, bullet points before this started, and I knew I was in trouble because Sarah was saying stuff that happened in the book, and I straight up didn't remember what she was talking about, but I lied to her face with my eyes. And I'm scared. I'm going to not remember. You're, like, talking about the cow udders. I'm like, I don't remember that.
Yeah, so, essentially, Stephen King doesn't understand how animals work.
Or humans.
So,
writers.
Annie has 2 cows and a pig, and she goes away at some point in the book for a few days, and he hears the cow screaming in the barn because she needs to be milked. The problem with that being, there's no bull, so she's not pregnant, and therefore she would not have milk to produce. And then, like, the cow dies later, supposedly from not being milked for a few days. The thing with that, cows... They do need to be milked regularly. It becomes very uncomfortable for them if they're not. They hold a lot of milk.
Same.
But if they're not milked for a few days, they're far more likely to get an infection rather than die from a ruptured udder.
I think he just does this to
up the horror.
Gross people out and just be cruel.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's a lot of, like when the rat... I'm sorry.
I think Stephen King's scared of rats because they're in every book.
I know I'm soft, but, like, my pet rats are not 15 feet away from us, and I love those babies more than even you. I would kill you for them if I had to.
That's fine.
So, no, I'm not kidding. But, like, I just don't like the animal abuse. I find it super gratuitous in this book that's already pretty gratuitous.
He kills rats in pretty much almost every book. I don't know if he does it for, like, the horror of, oh, it's a rat, or if he's scared of rats.
I would be scared of rats, too, if I was a rat murderer in books.
And then the other thing, in case you were wondering what that is, Annie murders a rat and then sucks its blood off her fingers. And then the other thing is there's a pig named Misery that Annie also has. And the pig's also, like, squealing and angry because it's hungry. Straight up, that pig would have broken out of its pen.
Yeah, I feel like Stephen King's a hack.
If you want to do horror, that pig, if it got hungry enough, pigs don't have a thing in their brain that tells them to stop eating. And, like, if it got hungry enough, it would absolutely, like... eat something it shouldn't, or, like, I've heard horror stories of pigs eating too much cat food and becoming dehydrated and getting brain damage, or, like, it would even go after the cows if it got hungry enough. There's horror within pigs that people don't explore.
I wouldn't have wanted to listen to a description of Paul beating a pig to death, but, like, what if that pig got out and, like, got in the house and attacked him? Would that happen? Would a pig attack a person if they were starving?
A domesticated pig, it would take a while, but eventually.
If he's got, like, his foot that got cut off, spoilers, on the ground... I don't know. You can do gross, weird stuff, but, like, don't be an idiot about it.
You're gonna have a fun time with Gerald's game?
Sarah, I know what happens partially. Ugh, I hate you. We could have been playing Stardew Valley right now, but this is what we're doing. Yeah, I know what's gonna happen in a lot of these, and I'm not looking forward to it. I kind of want to see the Gerald's Game movie, but I had
We can watch the movies after we read the stuff if you want.
I almost watched it without you because I was mad at you for making me read this.
We'll have to watch the movies after we discuss it, though, because we'll talk during the movie. You know we will.
Yeah.
So for a positive, for any Stephen King fans out there that are just like, wow, these women are mean.
I assume no one listening is a fan.
I surely hope not. But for a positive, one thing Stephen King does in pretty much every book that I really like is running thoughts and invasive thoughts, and thoughts that keep coming up. And I like that because it feels very real to me. And I also like that the recurring thoughts that keep coming up, it feels to me like it does up the tension. Like, Paul kept thinking specifically about Africa because I think, was it that he went to a zoo and there was some animal there that was from Africa and he felt like that animal trapped in a cage?
I believe. I don't remember because I took joke notes like an idiot, which I won't be doing again. I'll have the jokes, but I'll also have real stuff. I just didn't have like things to that.
Which reminds me, the book he wrote in Misery, I can't remember, Misery's Return, I think is what it's called.
Yeah. Super
racist. Just a warning.
That being said, those parts where he put excerpts from the book, I liked. Not necessarily the contents, but I liked that it was there. I was kind of compelled because it was like, at least interesting. Mm-hmm. Because I was curious if he would do that, but I liked that. And every time like a little segment would come up, I'd be like, oh good, I won't be bored for 10 minutes.
I also have a joke note.
Do you?
Yeah. Her husband cured her of murder, ?
Here's the thing about women, Sarah. We need men. And if we don't have them, we be crazy. And also, we cut off feet, not ours, other people's. And thumbs. I am joking. I'm going to say that immediately because I hate even, like, I just feel like.
So with Annie, there's a lot of talk about how she's crazy and how she has mental illnesses and all this stuff, but there's no specific mental illness that covers everything.
Yeah,
I don't think.
She's just capital C crazy.
Which is it's a problem for me, but in the 80s I understand that wasn't a big deal. But she murders a bunch of babies.
11.
I think she murders her husband.
I don't remember. I know she kills her roommate because we don't ever find out why. Paul speculates, but
yeah. Well, no, we find out why. It's she's like when she's going off on the hair thing, which we'll get to in a second. I think that's when she mentions that this is when he brings the Overlook into it, 'cause Stephen King likes to connect everything. Her roommate said he was taking pictures of the Overlook, and by roommate I mean man she was sleeping with who she let into her house.
Yeah, that's how roommates work.
And she finds out that he lied to her somehow, or that he wasn't a very good photographer or a sketch artist or something like that, and she goes off and murders him.
Well, she kills her college roommate too.
I must have missed that part.
That was the cat.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I do remember that part. Disclaimer, I listen to audiobooks when I'm free roaming my rats, so sometimes things get crazy.
I listened to this audiobook while I was working and contemplating just going to sleep with it playing.
But yeah, so she killed a cat, too.
Yeah, she poisons a cat to use to trip her roommate, so she falls down the stairs and dies.
That feels like one of those, like, horror movie, like, cheap horror movie gimmicks where it's just like, wow, you really knew exactly how this is going to go down.
That feels like a Chekhov's gun of, like, our cat's been missing for 3 days. Where's the cat? And then the cat shows up, trips the roommate, and then that's like, oh, man, the other roommate killed the cat because she's crazy. It's just, I should have done a tally of how many times he used the word crazy.
No, you didn't have enough paper.
I probably didn't.
So the last note I have is about the hair thing. Annie, to find out if Paul's escaping his room, which of course he is, and he's not very sly about it because he thinks Annie's dumb. He says it a bunch.
She likes romance, so
he
yeah.
He thinks she's an idiot, even though she got away with murdering 11 babies. He thinks she's an idiot.
She kind of got away with it.
Yeah, kind of. But
she's not in prison.
She is, I wouldn't call her stupid because she was a nurse.
Right.
She got away with murder. And she is self-sufficient.
But she does have terrible taste in books.
Yes. And she's forgetful, like, which doesn't really factor into the self-sufficiency. Like, she forgets to pay her house bill or something.
I also think that letting him have a cigarette at the end was stupid.
Yeah.
Like,
kinda
girl,
convenient.
you know he's not your friend. Be sus of him. You cut his foot off.
But he's been escaping, and she suspects this, but she thinks maybe she's crazy, so maybe she's wrong. So she plucks out a whole bunch of hair from her head and leaves it all around her house to figure out if he's been doing stuff. And I said that was wildly impractical. And Cappy said,
Hey, you know what? Okay. I've done similar things, setting people up. Okay. I still have a little I had a brother whom he doesn't steal snacks from me now, but he did when we were kids. So you do a little setup. You do with
your hair?
That was in an episode of Roseanne.
It's wildly impressive.
It was in an episode of Roseanne.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Do you remember Darlene had the lockbox?
Maybe it's because I have hair that's 3 feet long that I think it's wildly impractical.
Okay, Judgy McJudgerson, you've never had to worry about someone stealing your snackies?
Yeah, I have. My brother used to do it all the time, but he copped to it.
Well, Joshua wouldn't. So, yeah, like, I've been a child before. I don't have any more actual notes. I'm gonna try and take better notes for the next one.
Don't worry.
I wonder if when we get to the end, we should reveal what our next book is gonna be.
We can.
As a next time on Game Grumps kind of thing. Or, next time on Super Mega, which is your favorite internet show. So, do you have any more points you want to make?
No, that's it for me.
Yeah, I was disappointed by this book. I was hoping it would reflect more on fandom stuff, which of course it didn't because it was the 80s. My overall rating of it, I gave it a 2.5 out of 5.
If on my scale of Stephen King, good being The Shining, I want this book to end so that I never have to think about it again, being The Long Walk. I put it solidly in the middle.
That's probably fair. Okay, so we have a choice between our themes are Stephen King that Sarah has read and I haven't, and then one of our themes is books neither of us read, and then the other book is themes that our theme is that I've read and Sarah hasn't. So which would you like to do next? I'll let you pick because you let me pick Misery.
Let's do ones that you have read that I haven't.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Sarah, because the first up is House of Night, the young adult novel about vampires, and that's it. It's book one of House of Night up next.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening to us. And, yeah, so, I mean, if you want to read this book, if you haven't already, you know what you're in for. And I'm personally curious for any newcomers who might read it, what your thoughts are. So if there's a comment section wherever this pops up, please let me know. I'm just wildly curious. All right, well, we'll see you next time. So have a good evening, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.